about 80% of the settlers in the West Bank would be incorporated into Israel, and there would probably be anywhere from 60,000 to 100,000 settlers that would have to be evacuated. What would happen if some of those settlers refused to be evacuated, and you have radical religious rabbis who were telling the increasing number of Orthodox soldiers to not evacuate the settlements? How would those settlers be evacuated? Even if we're only talking about 10 or 20% of them, how could that happen?
That's a very nice story that you will only have to evacuate 100,000 settlers, and the story can be true only if, and this is exactly what we are saying, only if we will initiate peace according to our interests, and not wait for anybody in the world to impose it upon us, and then we will have to go back to something like the 67 borders. If we will initiate peace, then we could keep most of, maybe 80% of the settlers in their own home, keep the main blocks of Alfei Menashe, of Gush Etzion, of Ma'ale Adumim. Then we can do it. If we will initiate it. But if we will wait for some compromise, a post-war compromise or something like that, that will be imposed upon us, after Israel will go deep and weaker and weaker and weaker in this process that we've been seeing in the last few years, people don't keep the settlers in their homes. So what we are saying, we need to look at our interests and initiate peace right now. And if you don't believe you can make peace, if you don't want to call it marriage, call it a divorce. Let's end the occupation. Put a real border on the eastern side. Maybe peace will come in the next liberation. We will not reconcile here. Yossi, we will not. Yossi, let me tell you something about Gaza. And I will tell you something about Gaza. We will not reconcile here today our argument if we can make peace with the Palestinians and with the Hamas, or if we can't. I think that we can. You think that we can't. Still, even if Yossi is right, the best game for the Jewish Zionistic people today is to end the occupation, create a real border, a legitimate worldwide border in its eastern side, a border that we can protect. Like the border in Gaza that you like to talk about. Now what happened in Gaza? Show me one expert, and I know you will not be in this pool as well. Show me one expert that is saying, we need to return to Gaza. We need to rebuild our settlements in Gaza because our situation will be better off that way. There is not one military expert that will say it. Because you're saying, look what happened in Gaza. We got out and we got terrorism. Well, you forgot what was before that? I didn't. And I don't want to tell you anything that I did in Gaza before we withdrew from Gaza. It wasn't pleasant, let me tell you that. And today we have a real border. And yes, I think that the operation in Gaza was 8 years late. But it was. And we were able to protect the border, like the operation now. And this is what we should do in the West Bank. Now, I have a problem, and I will end with that. I have a problem. In the old wars, military commanders like me, infantry company commanders, will get medals because we will take our company from the right instead of the left, surprise the enemy, and win the war. I'm in a problem because I'm not going to get any better. Because the war is not like that anymore. It's not a war of a hero. It's a war of missiles from Iran. It's a strategic war. When gathering the world with us is the biggest asset, taking the world from looking at some flotilla from Turkey into Iran, this is Israel's #1 security asset. And this is what we want to aspire for. Not to tell everybody that we are right and they're anti-Semitic. And one last thing. The difference between the 1948 borders and the 1967 borders, the two say this is all the same. The UN said that this is all part of Israel. The difference is so simple. After the war in 1949, we gave citizenship to whoever stayed inside. And this is why the entire world recognizes this border. And we didn't do it after 1967. You want 1967 to be the same? Give them citizenship. I don't want that. I want to keep a Jewish and democratic state. So we can sit here until tomorrow and continue and justify why we are there and why Abu Mazen is such a terrible guy. Maybe he is. Maybe he's a terrible guy. Maybe Musa is a terrible guy. Maybe it's time to look at ourselves and our interests and see that this is somewhere that we don't want to be anymore. And say this is a border that we do want to create. And maybe this election should happen and not one election later because it will be too late.
one question to Yossi, and then we'll open it up to the audience. Oh, Yossi.